Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. About 6 to 7 topics here regarding Ukraine, Russia, refugees, predictions coming from experts, seeing who those experts are. It's very important to look into who the experts are. Then we find out that the Russians now they have sweatshops. Obviously, the Russians have probably slave labor as well. Why? Because now they have everything that the Nazis had, according to these guys who continue vomiting on us, I would say, some of these big lies. Well, we find out that supposedly values are more important than money and profits in capitalism, which again, it's a lie. Then we find out the Ukrainians, how do you call that? Meddle in other countries' internal affairs, which is the Ukrainian government urges the independent sovereign country of Georgia not to talk about the war in the election cycle. And the other one, another subject here, we find out that Zelenskyy's advisor, and I'm going to show you the advisor, tells Ukrainska Pravda that, hey, you know what, our officials will not talk to you. And then we have an article from Ukrainska Pravda confirming that, hey, wait a second, these guys don't, the Ukrainian the government of Ukraine, not the Ukrainian government. The government of Ukraine doesn't allow its officials to speak with Ukrainska Pravda. That's interesting. Now, is it fake or is it for real? So let's start with the first article coming from Ukrinform. And we find out the real, I don't want to say successes, because it's not a success. It's success for some, but it is the tragedy of millions of people. And I'm not counting the ones that died already or killed during this war. Ukrinform, over 1 million civilians evacuate from Ukraine-controlled Donetsk region. 1 million people. Sometimes we get tangled in numbers and say, well, I don't know, 500 people or 1,000 people or I don't know. But then if we put it in the context, one is too much. Like you would say, well, it's about 500 people who were, I don't know, raped or something. And you get into numbers. None should have been. The same here. 1 million civilians evacuated. One evacuated was already too much. But they just give you numbers, like how many people, how many Ukrainians evacuated or are refugees in Europe. Millions, about 7 million last time I checked. About 7 million people just moved from one spot into another spot. Do you understand how much the burden, the economic, I'm talking about the economic first, the economic burden of the nations that have to accept them, and the tragedy of the human tragedy of the people going over there, having to go over there. And we're talking about, we're going to send more missiles, about $60 billion more of missiles and air defense systems, and to prevent that. I don't think so. These guys look at us as flies. Flies come and go, 24 hours. What do you want? So, since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, approximately 1.161 million civilians. So it's 1,161,000 civilians have been, let's put it nicely, 1,161,000 civilians have been evacuated from the part of Donetsk region still controlled by the Ukrainian authorities, with around 335,000 people remaining. That is a tragedy. This is a tragedy, and unfortunately, when they give you numbers, they look so, just the numbers. They're saying, we're going to give $3 billion. $3 billion is it's 3,000 million dollars. That's it. $3,000 million. Let's say you get it. 3,000 million. If you a 3 billion regarding 3,000 million, you see the number, it makes it, but it's just a number. It is a number, but it's a big number. The same here. 1.16 million evacuated. Next one. They are confirming it, obviously, but I think they minimize it. Russia gains ground in Ukraine, but at steep cost. I read the article and I tell you that 95% of the article is about the cost. The cost meaning in human lives, that's what they mean, which is tragic. But they give you Russia gains ground, but this is the Russians, I don't think they have a big problem with that one, considering they don't conducted a general mobilization, which could bring about 30 million people to fight. Only male, I consider only male section of the society, able and willing, or some of them maybe not willing, to fight. So that's but a steep cost. But they at least acknowledge that, because you can't ignore it. Too much information out there. Russia has made slow but steady gains in recent weeks against Ukraine, but at steep cost, the bloodiest month in a nearly 3-year war, US officials said Wednesday. And all this thing here is about how Russia screwed up and how Russia did that. My point is this: Russia gains ground, slowly and steady. Why? You don't want to be too fast. I'm not saying they could. Remember, on the Russian side, I don't think they fight more than 800,000 people, which some of them are not Russian. 800,000 people. Is it a lot? It is a lot, because people die, thousands die, hundreds of thousands are dead already on both sides. For what? For some interest, economic interest. Next one. Let me show you how an expert has a crystal ball and tells us what likely will happen in the future. So, Business Insider from India. Russia's mass advantage against Ukraine should start declining by 2025, where expert says. We're going to find out who wrote this article, Mr. Matthew Loch, and who's the expert. Guess who? Michael Kaufman. All right. So let's start with the beginning. So he says that should start declining. If by 2025 there will be a war. It's like, you're sick. It's okay. We're gonna schedule you for a operation, a surgery in 6 months, and the operation, the surgery should be successful if you make it by then. But this guy Kaufman, who's a Jewish professor from Kiev, he just immigrated in 1991 from Kiev to United States of America. Fantastic, great. All right, so, and who's the expert? A guy who's a senior. He's a senior. Let me show you senior. Senior means expertise and knowledge and all that. Russia is flooding Ukraine with men and equipment, but that should slow soon, he says. Analyst Michael Kaufman said. Why? I don't even bother to go over his, how do you call it? I don't want to say evidence, because there's no evidence what he says. He's just a guy who hates Russia, I think. Why? Because they're not in control of Russia anymore, or Soviet Union for the same reason. So they, you know who I'm talking about, they are not in control. A European Russian is in control, and that cannot be. So let me show you who this Loch is. Can make shit up. Business Insider, right here. How old is this guy? 13. But hey, this is Matthew Loch. Now, maybe he's very smart. Maybe he knows a lot of things, has a lot of knowledge. But he says here, Matthew is a senior breaking news reporter. Senior. That means he's got experience. How big of experience? 2 years? Because in June 21, he joined the team. Good for him. And I look down here, and I don't find, much about anything back in time, or how should I put it, older than 2021. Right there. So he's a senior. 3 years, he's a senior. Next one, who's this Kaufman? You think I'm kidding? He's an American military analyst known for his expertise on the Russian armed forces. He's the director of the Russian Studies program and CNA senior fellow in the Russia and Eurasia program. This guy right here. And Kaufman was born in Kiev, Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, right there, and lived in Nikolaev before immigrating to the US in early 1991. How did he immigrate, I wonder? Only because that. Right there. You don't believe me? People who are familiar, let's put it this way, with how people immigrated during the Soviet Union still being around, or in those times understand, because they know there was an understanding between the groups and the countries. Romania had the same understanding, Nicolae Ceausescu, with the same groups. Therefore, they could immigrate, going to there or going to the United States of America. Why? They own it. So let's see what's going on here. We have a sweatshop, more than one, because these guys investigated it. Associated Press. Takeaways from Associated Press investigation of Russia recruiting Africans to make drones for use in Ukraine. Right there. It says here that about 200 women ages 18 to 22 from across Africa have been recruited to work in a factory alongside Russian vocational students assembling thousands of Iranian designated attack drones to be launched into Ukraine. Alongside vocational students. Right? So it says in an interview with the Associated Press, some of the women said they were misled that it would be a work-study program describing long hours after constant surveillance, broken promises, welcome to capitalism, about wages and areas of study, and working with caustic chemicals that left their skin pockmarked and itching. Now, if you work, I don't know, they give you some, all kind of, first, if that is true, that's not right. But that comes from Associated Press, so I'm looking at it with very much skepticism. I will give you some example. When, let's say you work in chemistry, your degree will be in chemistry. Do you think you're going to be only in the classroom? Do you think you won't be outside, not going to be in some laboratories working with some chemicals? Okay, let's say you work in, food packaging. Where do you think you will get your experience, hands-on experience? In the classroom? Do you think you won't go to some factories? I mean, okay, now I'm going to give you a little story when I was a kid in a communist Romania. Actually, it was a socialist Romania with one party, the Communist Party. So over there, the students were supposed, and the military, were supposed to help in picking up crop. All kind of crop. Was it corn? Somewhere to pick up apples, lucky ones. Some people were supposed to get some, we call them nap, some sugar cane, I don't know how you call it, sugar, something lives in the ground. I did that. You just pull it out and then you cut the leaves and it was like this, is for sugar. You give it to animals to eat, to cows, and so on. So we did that. We had, it was the school was divided in high school in this case, or in the earlier years in trimesters. It's about three months, and in between holidays, vacation. So in this let's say three trimester, in one trimester, in 3 months, you would go, let's say 2 weeks, usually in fall. That would be September, October maximum, and they would pick you up. They would go take you to the fields, and you would work over there for about 2 weeks, and then you go back to school. Now we were not. Opa, so he wants to get there. Okay, you got there. Nosy Nate. So it's like scramble. So we used to do that, and well, we liked it. I liked it because for me it was better than school. I like the physical labor. I mean, no problems, and it also taught you to like here you have, how do you call these things when you get a internship? We were not paid. And we just used us, and instead of being in a classroom, better be over there. So we worked over there, and we had, there's different methods of, we couldn't take anything with us. No products or anything. But it worked, discipline, hard work, manual labor. So you can appreciate that over there. Were we exposed to what? Yeah, we were exposed with the germs and all that. We didn't bother at all. We were not provided with gloves and things. No, with our bare hands and so on. I never regretted that, because I think that works on your character. Now, I'm not saying that these women, I'm not trying to defend it, it was an extra. But a lot of those people who were taken into the fields like I was, and many like me of those generations, did not like that. And if you would interview them, they will tell you stories like this. It was awful, I should be in a classroom, and I should do this, I didn't sign up for this is abuse, this is that. Yeah, you can look at that way. But since we have a war here and we have a propaganda machine, which is everywhere, well, these guys have to tell you that the Russians have sweatshops now. And they mislead all the time. Because here, nobody misleads you. Here, the greatest country in the world, or in a capitalist systems, when you go and apply for a job, you find out many, many, many things at the bottom, and everything else is necessary. So they give you, I don't know, a list of 20 tasks. This is what you're going to do. And then, or wherever you might be needed. And that nullifies the 12 or 20 tasks that they specifically write. And not only that, this is, if that happened, too bad for the girls. I hope they can go back. If not, that's a problem. Now, let's go to the next article, which deals with the same issue. This is according to Ukrainska Pravda. Russia deceives young women from Africa, Latin America, and Asia into assembling Shahed drones, media says. In the same time when the Ukrainians are trying to get people who did not want to fight for various reasons for the guys in charge of Ukraine, and they fled Ukraine and tried to grab them. The same guys who shoot at the ones who want to cross the, the Tisa River into Romania, right? The same guys, because there's the defection right there. No, you can't do that. That's treason, correct? Correct. Nobody asked them, why don't you want to fight? Well, maybe I don't support the guys in charge of my country, the non-Ukrainians. Maybe I don't support what they tell us we're fighting for, which is those foreign interests. Maybe I don't want to fight my cousin Russians. Maybe these guys think that the Russians are right. There's so many things, but no, you are shot at. So these guys are telling us that Russia deceives young women from Africa. And in the meantime, a lot of our billions go to Ukraine without being asked. So I'm not asked about the money is sent over there. So how is that fair? So those women are deceived, but I'm not even asked if I want to send a penny to someone else. No, I'm not, but this is democracy for you. So, blow me a river, all right? Don't cry me a river. Blow me a river about this. I'm supposed to, squeeze some empathy on that. When I know that, and I know that, it won't happen. It won't happen. Ask me if I want to send. The same here. These guys are doing so many things without asking us, the programs. And they do it in our name because they know better. Without asking us. They just let us know. We made another program for this group, or for that group, or for that cause. Well, I don't want to pay. Too bad, you have to. The social contract. I want to break that social contract. I want to renegotiate. Too late. Well, you are in the system. Let's go to the next article and topic, where we find out that the businesses are not in for a profit and making money. It's for spreading values. Here is an example. Business Insider. Russia is said to be losing another banking partner as more lenders turn their back on Moscow over fear of sanctions. Blackmail. So under threats. So this is the way it works. I'm a business. I want to make business whenever I make money. No, the government tells you, if you do that, we're going to hurt you. And they tell me about the Russians and the misleading. And this is legal. They don't deny it. It's legal. I sanction you. Whomever does business with that, we're going to hurt you. And they tell me about those ladies, which if they're caught in that situation, it's bad. But don't you cry for me? Don't you blow me a river for that? Again, how do they turn their back? Because they are threatened. They're threatened with negative consequences by the government. And you're screwed if you're threatened by the government. And it said, fear of sanctions. I thought the banks are there to profit, to lend you money that they don't have, right? Remember, they can do it 10 times the more they have. You have $1, they can lend up to $10. 9, they don't have. It's not backed. But you can't do that. It's illegal. But they are legal. So somehow these guys have values. No, that's the way it works. That's the way it works. And they're telling me, no, they're Russians. And now, let's see how the Ukrainians are getting involved in other countries' internal affairs. Ukrainska Pravda. Ukraine's foreign ministry urges Georgian authorities, Georgia is a country, just so you know, not to exploit topic of war in election campaign. Who the fuck are you to tell me that? It's like the Russians will tell Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, do not exploit the Russian war in Ukraine in your campaign, election campaign. What would these guys say then? Mind your own business, for good reason. Off. You understand? I understand. It's not that complicated, obviously. And we find out that the government that we are supporting without being asked to support with billions of dollars does this to its media. Ukrainska Pravda. Zelenskyy, I don't understand those double Y's over there. Why not triple? Make it advisor forbids officials to communicate with Ukrainska Pravda journalists. Now, I look at this picture. I'll try to find out these guys. I couldn't find it. But, I look at the picture and I understand that these guys, could be related. I mean, they look alike a little bit. I know, I'm just kidding, right? Look at those. How old is this guy? 22? This is the advisor. His name is Dmitro Litvin. All I found about this Mr. Dmitro Litvin is a football player. Ukrainian football player. President's advisor on communications had been covertly imposing prohibitions for officials to communicate with journalists of one media outlet. If true. Why? Because sometimes you create a fake narrative, like for instance Medvedev. I'm waiting for Medvedev. Medvedev being now a biggest hawk. All right, that's how Medvedev is right now. But maybe he's like this because he has to be, so he doesn't blow his cover. The same here, they create a narrative. Medvedev could be on the payroll of some foreign agencies. We don't know it, but he doesn't want to be pointed out like, hey, why are you so quiet, Medvedev? Hey, Dmitry, why are you so quiet? No, I'm not. The same as, remember, when these guys are asked, do you condemn? Do you condemn? I don't want to talk about it. Fuck you. Who are you to tell me? I'm in a classroom here. It's an interrogation. You tell me, are you condemn? I don't have to talk to you. I don't have to even answer that garbage. It's my business. Like you have that imbecile Piers Morgan all the time. Do you condemn? Do you condemn? Like he's the judge over there. Do you condemn? Do you condemn? Well, the same. These guys don't want to talk with supposedly one media outlet. But maybe it's an understanding. Therefore, oh my God, you see? Ukrainska Pravda all of a sudden is a dissident newspaper, media outlet. Can you believe that? It's possible. I mean, if you work in the system and you understand certain things, you know the dynamics, it could be an understanding. Therefore, people see, Ukrainska Pravda cannot be on the payroll of the Ukrainian government because, look, these guys have an order not to talk to Ukrainska Pravda. Blah, 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 blah. Easy, cheap try. At least for me. I'm waiting. But these guys that we defend democracy in Ukraine against the Russian imperialistic, undemocratic, tyrannical rule of Putin, right? They banned some Russian language in certain areas. They closed media outlets with Russian language. Remember, they have they used to, and they still have, if you want to look at it, Russian ethnic group over there. They banned that. What they do with Zakarpattia, with the Hungarians? They banned their political parties, their religion. They took over everything, I would say. Not everything, I don't want to say everything, but a lot of things, like, for instance, books, streets named by the let's say, Pushkin. Pushkin statue was removed. What the fuck had Pushkin had to do with this? Or streets of Russian inventors or people of color. Of culture were removed and replaced with others, some controversial figures, but that's Ukraine's business. But on the other hand, they call me that this guy's a free country, and no, that's discrimination. This is erasing another culture from the midst of my culture. How do you call that? Is that called cleansing something? But hey, we support them against Putin. That's not, it's a bullshit. It's a bullshit situation. And we have New Voice of Ukraine saying Ukrainian media outlet Ukrainska Pravda alleges pressure from government. Now, blocked government representatives according to the publication, the presidential office has blocked government representatives from communicating with Ukrainska Pravda journalists and participating in their events, pressured business to cease advertising partnership with the outlet. The report also references Zelenskyy's emotional exchange with Ukrainska Pravda. Emotional. Probably they yelled at one another. Roman Kravets, this is very much Ukrainian, during a live press conference on August 27. These, and I'm quoting, and other non-public signals suggest attempt to influence our editorial policy. It is especially troubling to face such pressure during Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, when our united fight for survival and democratic values is critical. The statement from the journalist read. The journalist warned that any further attempts by the officials from President's office to influence Ukrainska Pravda will be made public and will have international consequences. No, it won't, as long as the Americans have an interest. And I'm quoting, every such attempt only strengthened our motivation to expose corruption and mismanagement at the highest level of power. You know what they're going to do? They're going to make you illegal by law. And they will all vote for it and they will close you. Case closed. Next one. Are you talking shit about me? I'm going to close you too. No, my bad. Where's your ass? That's the way it works, my friend. That's the way it works. Yeah. And remember, this is a country that we defend with a lot of weapons, and hundreds of thousands of people possibly injured, wounded, and dead. For what? For Zelensky's time. Why? Because Putin is in charge of Russia, not Mr. Zolzberg or something like Kaufman or Kosman. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.